One of the most unexpected shifts in recent years is beginning to take place in the technology market right now. And more often in insider circles, there is talk of the idea that Samsung may be preparing one of the most ambitious steps in its history, namely a potential entry into the electric vehicle market. Not long ago, this sounded like fantasy, but today the situation is starting to look different, as according to information from analysts and industry sources, Samsung is intensifying developments related to automotive technologies. And it is important to understand that this is no longer just about components, as more and more signals indicate that the company may be considering creating its own car. And if this is indeed the case, then we are talking about a completely new product, conditionally already being called Galaxy Car. And this is not just a name for hype, but a logical continuation of Samsung's strategy, because the company has been building an ecosystem of devices for many years, including smartphones, watches, home appliances, and displays. And the next step is to expand this ecosystem beyond the home. The most interesting thing is that Samsung already has almost all the key technologies for creating an electric vehicle, as through its Samsung SDI division, the company develops batteries for electric cars. And this is not a basic level, but advanced solutions including research in the field of solid-state batteries. Next are chips, as Samsung is one of the largest semiconductor manufacturers in the world, which means the company can create its own processors for cars. And today, it is precisely computing power that becomes the foundation of modern vehicles, including autopilot, safety systems, and data processing, all of which are tied to chips. The next element is displays, as Samsung already supplies screens for cars. And these are not just panels, but curved, flexible, high-quality displays that form the vehicle's interface. And if you imagine a car from Samsung, you can expect a completely new level of visual experience. It is also important not to forget about the subsidiary company Harman, which deals with audio systems, interfaces, and automotive electronics, and is essentially already integrated into a huge number of modern cars, meaning Samsung has access to experience that is usually built over decades. And here a key moment appears, because Samsung is already inside the automotive industry, just not as a brand but as a technology supplier, and the transition to its own car becomes not so impossible. An additional impulse to this whole story was given by the example of Xiaomi, whose electric vehicle SU7 became a real breakthrough, showing that a technology company can enter the automotive market and immediately create a product that generates interest and competes with traditional brands. According to analysts, it is precisely this case that could have influenced Samsung's strategy, because it proved one important thing. Today, not only the mechanics of a car matter, but also the user experience, ecosystem, software, and integration. And this is exactly what Samsung has traditionally been strong in. Imagine what such a car might look like. You leave your home and the car is already synchronized with your smartphone. It knows your route and adjusts the seat, climate, and music to you. And the car interface looks like a continuation of one UI. All devices are connected to each other, including the watch, phone, home, and car, and everything works as a single system. And it is precisely here that Samsung can offer something that traditional automakers do not have, namely deep integration of technology into everyday life. But it does not end there, because the next level is artificial intelligence, and Samsung is actively developing its AI direction. And in a car, this could manifest itself in the most vivid way, including a smart assistant, analysis of driver behavior, and automatic adaptation of the interface. And if all of this is combined, we do not just get an electric vehicle, we get a device. And this is where the most interesting part begins, because in such a scenario, the car becomes an extension of the smartphone, or even its replacement in some scenarios. And this is already a direct challenge to other tech giants. First of all, Apple, because if Samsung actually enters this market, the competition will move to a completely new level. This will not just be a battle of cars, it will be a battle of ecosystems. Of course, at the moment there is no official confirmation that Samsung is preparing its own car, but the number of indirect signals continues to grow. And all of this creates the feeling that the company is at least considering such a scenario. And if this happens, it could become one of the loudest launches in the industry in recent years. Because we are not just talking about a new product, we are talking about a new stage in the development of technology. And it is possible that right now Samsung is preparing the very step that will once again change the rules of the game. And there is one more point that makes this story even more interesting, because this is not only about technology, but also about strategy. Samsung has always acted differently from other companies. It does not wait for the perfect moment. It creates it itself. And if inside the company, the launch of its own car is really being considered, it means that the decision has already passed several levels of evaluation and has a serious foundation behind it. Moreover, it is important to understand how exactly such a product may appear, because it does not necessarily have to follow the classic path from scratch, as Samsung can go through partnerships, use ready-made platforms, and combine its technologies with the experience of automakers. And it is precisely this approach today that allows companies to accelerate market entry multiple times. There is also another factor that is rarely discussed, and that is control over the ecosystem. Because today, the largest technology companies are trying to keep the user inside their products, including smartphones, watches, home systems, and services. But the car remains the last major element that is not yet fully integrated. And if Samsung manages to close this segment, it will give the company a completely new level of control over the user experience. And at that moment, everything begins to come together into one picture. The smartphone becomes the control center. The car becomes its extension. The home becomes part of a unified system, and the user no longer simply uses devices but lives inside the ecosystem. That is why the potential Galaxy car is not just another electric vehicle. It is a step toward creating a unified digital space around a person. And if Samsung really decides to take this step, it could mark the beginning of a new era where technology finally moves beyond screens and becomes part of the real world. But if you look even deeper, it becomes clear that launching such a product is not just an expansion of the lineup, but an attempt to take a key position in the future mobility market. Because in the coming years, the car will cease to be just a means of transportation and will become a platform, a space where a person spends time, works, communicates, and interacts with the digital world. And this is exactly where Samsung can get ahead, because the company already knows how to create interfaces that are intuitive for millions of users. It knows how to work with displays, sensors, AI, and cloud services, which means it has a chance not just to enter the market, but to set a new standard for what the car of the future should be, especially considering the speed at which the electric vehicle market is developing today, as competition is intensifying and new players are appearing faster than ever. And in such an environment, the winner is not the one who has been on the market longer, but the one who offers the best experience. And if Samsung really combines all its technologies into one product, this could create an effect comparable to the emergence of the first smartphone, when a device stops being narrowly specialized and becomes a universal center of the user's life. And then the question will no longer be whether Samsung will enter the car market, but how much it will change the rules of the game for everyone else.